Now, an estimated 8,220 people have died from Ebola in Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone, according to the latest figures from the World Health Organization. It estimates that there are some 20,000 cases in these countries. And it goes without saying that the impact of the disease in those affected areas in West Africa has been devastating. And there's an entire village in Liberia where every single mother has died, leaving dozens of confused and devastated children. A charity worker from Street Child came across the village. Let's talk now to the organisation's chief executive, Tom Dannatt. Good evening to you, Tom. Tell us the story. How did they come across it and what did your worker find?
We came across this village, Joblo in Margibi. We were called by the government of Sierra Leone. We've been working predominantly in Monrovia, the capital, where we've supported over 1,000 Ebola orphans. And the government called us up and said, look, will you come and look at this Margibi County outside Monrovia, and there's this particular village, and we went there, and it was a remarkable sight. No adults at all. The men were in the field. The mothers were all dead. They'd all died of Ebola. There'd been one lady who got Ebola about 8 weeks ago. They had a traditional funeral, and all of the women in that village were involved in that process. They came into contact with the bodily fluids of that lady, and within a very short space of time, literally the entire young women of that village died, and you just had a few grannies left. And so my colleague Chloe arrived in the village to see children milling around, just being overseen by a few grannies. It was a tragic sight.
And so what has happened to them since then? If you said, I'm right, the men were in the fields, there's a few grandmothers, but every single one of the mothers was dead.
Yeah, and so the men are in the field, so the children are getting, there'll be food on their plates, and that's more than for some children who've been orphaned by Ebola. But this issue underscores the complexity of the issue. What these children will lack is the maternal care, the love, the reassurance as they grow up, and this is what the international community needs to start thinking about now, particularly in Liberia, where Ebola as a disease looks, thankfully, like it's under control. The schools are planning to reopen on the 2nd of February, and we need to start looking at the situations and the very complex needs of these children. What can be done? Because at the moment, very little has been done, and that's why Street Child, a comparatively young charity, has been called by the government of Sierra Leone, the government of Liberia rather, to go and look at a village like this. You would expect, quite frankly, the larger organisations to be the ones carrying the brunt of this, but they're not there. They're all busy fighting Ebola the disease rather than dealing with Ebola, the humanitarian catastrophe, the children left behind by Ebola.
I was going to say, and pick up on precisely that point. Well, if we're talking about this young Ebola, post-Ebola generation of survivors, I mean, on the one hand, their future could be pretty dire, couldn't it, without the normal loving care of a family that you would expect. So who's doing it for them?
Well, to be clear about this, no one is doing it for them. I mean, in certain situations, you're lucky, a natural response mechanism, local adults around are coming in and helping. In other situations, they're not, and what is needed is external intervention. It needs social workers to come in and to mediate these situations and to help retie the knots of society, and that's a costly intervention. And it needs to happen, or else what's going to happen without any doubt at all is street children in greater numbers on the streets of Monrovia, Freetown and the other large cities of these countries. And my organisation, Street Child, has been working before Ebola on this precise issue, and we're very nervous about the increased volumes that we will see in the coming year, and we don't want that because for 4, 5, 6 years now these countries have been going forwards, and now they're going back very, very quickly.
And you as you rightly said, your worker has found one village in one of the affected countries, and presumably this might not be a unique situation. We might be talking about a problem the size of which we haven't even come across yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in Sierra Leone myself at the end of November. I sat with a community on the edge of Kenema where 46 from one family had gone to a funeral, and 39 died in the weeks that followed. These situations these stories are out there all over these 3 countries, and they're not getting the attention that they deserve. I mean, that example from Kenema, that story was from July, August. I was sitting there with this family in November. No one, apart from my organisation, Street Child, had done anything for them at all. And again, we are just one comparatively small organisation. Others really need to step up to the plate. The big players need to step up to the plate, or else we're going to see, a tragic post-Ebola generation.
Tom, thanks very much for talking us through that very, very difficult situation there in Liberia. Tom Dannatt there from Street Child.